Do you remember 2014? Some of you were probably just little babies. Some of you may not have been born yet. Some of you may have been full-grown adults. I remember back then, I was in middle school. There were a lot of really great movies that came out that year. Interstellar, Guardians of the Galaxy, Winter Soldier, Godzilla. But most of all for me was Age of Extinction. And that's the movie that really got me into collecting Transformers. I'd gotten a few for the first one that came out when I was little. I got a few for Revenge of the Fallen, for Dark of the Moon, but it was Age of Extinction where I was really like, I want to buy all of them. Or at least the deluxes and the Voyagers. And it was easier back then. It was $15 for a deluxe, $25 for a Voyager, $45 for a leader. Now it's $28, $43, and $60 respectively. So you gotta wonder, what the heck happened here? Deluxes are nearly twice as much, and so it's like, what went wrong? And is it really that much more expensive today if we look at it accounting for inflation and all these other economic factors? So let's go in and look at the numbers. Price analysis. So according to the CPI inflation calculator, which is the government's official website for inflation, a deluxe adjusted for inflation would be about $21, a Voyager about $35.29, and a leader about $63.53. If we take those 2014 prices and just adjust them for inflation. So if we do some math here, that means the deluxe is 32% overpriced, the Voyager is 22% overpriced, but the leader is actually 6% underpriced. And does that mean Hasbro should raise the price on leaders? No, of course not. But it is interesting. Now let's factor in tariffs. And just a quick disclaimer before we do. Inflation and tariffs, they both have heavy political undertones. So I expect people to go fight about that in someone else's comment section. Because this channel is about Transformers. So behave yourself and don't make me mute you. Anyways, Transformers are manufactured in Vietnam right now, which is currently under a 20% tariff. If we apply that to our inflation adjusted prices, then we would get the following: $25.42 for a deluxe, $42.35 for a Voyager, and $76.24 for a leader. Again, hopefully no one at Hasbro is watching right now. But this means that a deluxe costs about 10% more than expected when we factor in inflation and tariffs. Voyagers cost 2% more, and leaders are actually about 21% less. Again, Hasbro, please don't raise the price of the leader class. But looking at this data, prices actually aren't too far from what we should expect. Leaders are actually a better deal now than they were back in the day. Don't change it. However, that doesn't change the truth of the matter, which is Transformers just feel way too expensive. So why do they feel so expensive? There are many factors working together, but I think these are the main ones. Sudden price hikes. At some point, deluxes went from $15 to $20. This felt fine because a long time had passed and pricing, it needs to keep up with the costs, keep up with the market. That made sense. Then they went to $22, and then $23, and then $25 in rapid succession. There's not a great archive of data on Transformers prices, but it really felt like they were increasing at a very fast rate for a few years. And it seems to me that Hasbro might have put off price hikes until absolutely necessary to avoid angering the fans, and then they all kind of hit at once. But after a while, things did start to stabilize. $25, $35, $55 for the three main classes respectively. It didn't feel great, but it was tolerable. But then came the most recent wave. $28 deluxes felt terrible. But that was nothing compared to the $8 price hike on Voyagers. This last wave of increases is where many collectors decide to finally draw the line. Which brings us to our next point, tariffs and inflation. Again, do not try to argue about geopolitics in my comment section or I will feed you to the Sharkticons. But inflation has caused most of the price hikes in recent years. However, the tariff raise has been especially brutal. While inflation theoretically, but not in reality, raises the wages of working people, it will take years to see the economic benefits of the tariffs, assuming they actually work as intended. Meanwhile, products made in low-wage countries such as Vietnam are going to be hit hard. While I'm sure Hasbro does eat some of the costs, a portion of it will eventually be passed along to the consumer, which is you and me. In addition to fueling previous price increases, inflation has also reduced the real earnings of working class people. In 2014, the median household income was about $54,000, and it's now at about $81,000, according to census.gov. If we adjust for inflation, that's really not great. While the $15 Age of Extinction Deluxe back in the day would cost about 0.3% of your household's monthly income, the modern $28 Deluxe is about 0.4%, and this is a 24% increase. With how high the cost of living is right now, that's a lot for Hasbro to ask for an item that's basically a novelty and not an essential that we need to survive. So what can we do about it? Well, first option, you can stop collecting. And obviously that is always an option, but it's pretty lame. And, at this point, you're probably being forced to collect by some sort of autistic, demonic entity, so quitting probably isn't an option for you. So let's move on to option 2, which is waiting for discounts. This is the path for those of us who have a little self-control but still want to stay in the hobby. And I have a whole Amazon list of Transformers I want, but not at their current prices. Obviously, not all Transformers will make it to clearance, and some of them you just need to bite the bullet and get them, or you'll miss out. But more and more, these prices are turning people away who would be day one buyers, and that is making discount shopping an increasingly more viable strategy. And then the third approach, I do not recommend buying knockoffs. Sure, there's websites like AliExpress, and they offer a wide variety of reasonable to high quality bootlegs at unbeatable prices, but who would really want that, am I right? And yes, I once or twice or more times I may have been walking along in front of my computer and I trip and fall and accidentally order a knockoff or two, but legally I'm just not gonna recommend them, even if they are good and well priced, and a lot of them are pretty cool, but I just don't recommend that. So conclusion, I wouldn't say that Transformers are unreasonably expensive right now given everything going on, but the fact that everything else is super expensive is really making it a lot harder to financially justify this hobby, especially for hardcore collectors who need to get them all. But what do you think? Do you think there's anything I missed? Let me know in the comments. I know a lot of people probably want me to talk about like how they've gotten smaller over the years, but I think that the increased complexity is a fair trade-off for that. Just remember, this channel is about Transformers, not geopolitical policy decisions, so don't go crazy, because I will mute you if I have to. But finally, despite anything I may have said trying to make sense of Hasbro's prices, just on the off chance that anyone from their company is listening, or if there is an AI scanning to find public opinion on this, lower your prices, lower your prices, lower your prices.